Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Johnson, and it is that time of year. Kids are going back to college, or maybe this is their first year in a college environment. And I think back to when I was that age and thinking about what I was going to do. And it felt like this monumental, holy smokes, life decision. What was I going to major in? And it seemed like picking that major was just the end all be all for everything in my career. There was just so much pressure. I ended up getting a master's degree in marketing, a master's degree in history, even though I work in marketing. And many people think that the two of those don't relate at all, but actually they do. And in fact, I attribute a lot of the success that I've had as a marketing and innovation strategist, as an author, and as a speaker to the things that I learned when I studied history. One of the things that we look at in history, or that we hear, is that history repeats itself. And you know what? It does the same thing in business as well. And finding patterns in history trained my mind to be able to find those patterns in my work day to day in business. So being able to spot this pattern and relate it into my work and start to do some more really unconventional type of thinking has really, really been helpful for me. Now, if you believe this, and especially as innovators, being able to connect the dots between what we learn, what we experience, what we observe in everything that we do, it's so critical, but it isn't always an easy task. Now, especially when your personal interests, like mine with history and some other things that I have, don't seem to necessarily come up day to day in the work that we do. Now, if you subscribe to this line of thinking, you are absolutely going to love my guest today, Dia Bondi. So Dia went to auctioneering school just for fun. And she connected the dots between what she learned there into the work that she does every day in corporate America. And I tell you, if she can make that connection, I know that you can learn to do it too. Connect the Dots is a show where we dig into the details of how the world's most successful and prolific innovators find inspiration for their ideas and then connect the dots into the work that they do every day. It doesn't matter what industry they're in, what part of the world that they live in, or what their job role is. They have known how to connect the dots, and that's what we're exploring on this episode. So today I'm excited to have Dia Bondi with me. Dia has been coaching leaders, entrepreneurs, technologists, and social impact innovators to have courage to actually speak from the heart so that they can impact their goals. She's worked with incredible brands like Intel, Mozilla, Salesforce, and Dropbox. She's coached change makers at the Clinton Global Initiative and the Commonwealth Games Federation. And as a coach and a story strategist, she helped Rio de Janeiro secure the 2016 Olympic Games. So how has her studies with auctioneering school allowed her to impact some of the world's biggest companies? That's exactly what we're going to get into today on Connect the Dots. Dia, welcome to the show.
Hi, Carla, and everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you on Connect the Dots.
Yeah, I have to say, I think other than my little small hometown, you are the first time that I've spoken to a real live auctioneer in probably decades.
Well, I'll tell you. So when you think of an auctioneer, I'm sure there's this sort of like iconic, tall, skinny man in a 10-gallon hat with a big shiny belt buckle at a hog farm. And that's
the ones I know.
And that is the profile of the folks that I went to auctioneering school with. But the kind of auctioneering that I ended up doing as an impact hobby is fundraising auctioneering for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits that benefit women and girls. It really turned into my impact hobby. And, while the techniques and sort of the insights and the ideas that we use in fundraising auctioneering are similar to what happens at a hog yard or a hog sale, what I drew out of the world of fundraising is yes, tied to the world of auctioneering, but also tied to helping folks in the world ask for what they need to resource their dreams.
Now, you said a phrase that I'd like you to define and explain a little more, because I think it's really important to what we're going to talk about in the next 20, 25 minutes. And you said an impact hobby. What's an impact hobby?
Well, I think about, there are hobbies that just belong to us and don't have an impact on anyone else. Fitness is one for me where I'm by myself. It doesn't have an impact on anyone except myself. but I have identified a few hobbies in my life, and fundraising auctioneering was one of them, that has an impact on other people. And I'm doing it not just because I enjoy it, but I'm doing it because it impacts something outside of me that matters to me in the world. And in that case, it was around putting more money and opportunity in the hands of women-led nonprofits and nonprofits that benefit women and girls. So in that way, it is a hobby, but it is a hobby aimed at having a particular kind of impact in the world.
And how often do you think people actually look at hobbies in that way? Do you think many people intentionally choose an impact hobby?
I don't know. I haven't heard anybody else say impact hobby before.
Is that your term, or is that?
It might be my term. And in fact, when I teach workshops or I give the keynote, Ask Like an Auctioneer, I often will talk about my impact hobby, and something I hear back from women in the room, often virtual room or IRL room. People will say back like, impact hobby, I've never heard that before. I don't know. I think folks who have an impact hobby, they might think of it as their give back or their volunteerism or the philanthropic sort of activities they engage in. I called it an impact hobby because hobby to me has a little bit of like delight. It has something in it for me too, It has some fun in it, and a hobby has a little bit of craftsmanship in it, right? Like if we're building boats as a hobby, that's a challenge. You're learning something inside of it. In my case, I was learning how to auctioneer, which had a little interesting, like I was learning and kind of understanding a particular craft, and also knew that it was doing good in the world.
Yeah, I like that idea of helping others through impact, and then a hobby where you learn something yourself. My husband and I were talking the other day about some volunteer opportunities, and I said, to be honest, I don't want to do anything in a volunteer role that involves writing, speaking, communication, like the things I do all day long. Because one is that I'm a little bit of a snob about it. I'll be honest.
Sure.
I don't want to go into I don't want to go into a volunteer environment and be just the crazy woman who wants everything to be perfect. I want to do something that is different that I can learn from too.
Yeah, it was, aside from the fact that like, it's super fun to have a reason to get dressed up in my everyday life, that's, when I'm stepping on stage for work, it's usually, exactly. It's not a backless gown and a microphone in hand. It's a suit jacket and a microphone in hand. So yeah, that's a part of it that was just sort of fun and an exploration. And felt like such a departure, and it turned out it wasn't so much, but it was such a departure.
Now share a little bit about how you got into auctioneering school, because I know it was part of a bigger time of exploration for you that I think is really interesting for people to consider.
Yeah, so I'm almost 50. And I noticed, I don't know that if I like declared this early in my life, but I noticed sort of I go in 7-year cycles. 7's my favorite number, it turns out. But 7-year cycles where I put myself sort of on a working sabbatical, every 7 years, and sort of scratch my head and look around. And a handful of years ago, it was that time to take a little bit of a working sabbatical. And I say working sabbatical because I wasn't really trying to push myself professionally in any one direction. I was working less, taking on strategic projects that just seemed fun, riding my bike to the office. I just slowed everything down. And during that time, I was reminded, my husband reminded me of a threat that I had made many years before. So I have 2 kiddos, and we were part of a preschool when my kids were very young that was community supported. And during that time, because I was the parent caregiver in the community who was comfortable on a mic, we had a fundraiser every year. And the fundraising committee said, Dia, nobody's comfortable on the mic like you. You're gonna be our live auctioneer and MC for this year's event. And so I did the auction. I'd never done that before. I didn't even watch any. It's funny, like YouTube's around. I could have actually looked at some instruction on how to do it. I didn't. I just sort of figured it out. I bumbled through it and had a great time. And a couple of weeks later, I was at a dinner table, and we were all talking about like, what would you do? What's on your bucket list? Like, what is something you'd want to do in your life? And I said, I did this thing a few years ago, and I would actually want to learn how to be an auctioneer, like actually know how to step onto an auction block and do it for real. And during this my son's 14 now. That was when he was 3 or 4. And so a handful of years ago, during that low level working sabbatical, my husband said, I was looking for something to do, something new to learn, something to just snap me into a new perspective. And my husband said, hey, remember that thing you said you'd do? And so I looked on the internet, and that week I signed up for auctioneering school. There was a thing called auctioneering school. I didn't even know that. And I went to Missouri, and me and 100 cowboys learned how to sell art, livestock, real estate, and anything that would help a nonprofit raise funds for their mission. So there it is.
So give me a little profile of what your classmates were like, because I don't imagine you looked around and saw people like you. And where did you go to auctioneering school?
So I went to auctioneering school in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was a 10-day experience, like literally at a roadside Holiday Inn, in sort of a
plush accommodation.
Yeah, the typical low lit or not very well lit conference rooms or ballrooms in the back of a roadside convention space. And yes, it was about 100 of us. I think there were a few other women, but these were women who grew up in the Midwest and who grew up in and around, fair auctions that happened every season. Literally, I think there was one woman there whose family ran the livestock show and like the 4-H show and did an auction every year. And she was like, I want to learn how to do it just because it's a family tradition. But, aside from the handful of women in there, it was a lot of men who were, had grown up in the world of livestock auctioneering, who were a few real estate folks, but they were in real estate because they came out of, they used the skill of what they learned in the world of cattle and sort of junkyard auctioneering in that space. But these folks were all, mostly Midwestern, some folks from California, actually, because believe it or not, I live in California. Believe it or not, we do have some auction yards in and around Central California and in the Central Valley. So these guys were all folks who had been spotting for other auctioneers for a really long time. They had worked on ranches. They were in and around the auctioneering space, and our instructors were all professional auctioneers and national champions actually as well. So they had some of them had incredible chants, which is that sort of rolling auctioneering chant that you think of as an iconic auction sound, which is something I got to play with. But in the world of fundraising auctioneering, you can't have such a strong chant because nobody would ever know what they're bidding on and at what they'd pay for, because it's so hard to sometimes distill and understand what folks are saying as an auction coming off the auction block.
Oh, I totally get that. I mean, being at enough sales, it's like, what? And so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
I want you to auction off this Sharpie. I want to hear the full blown hardcore auctioneer chant.
Well, I don't have one. That's what I'm saying, is that in the world of fundraising auctioneering, you can't have one. But if I started,
let's have you start with yours. Yeah,
my chant sounds really, really much more like talking. So it sounds like this. Right now, we'll be. You can hold up your pen. We'll be auctioning off this fabulous pen with a blue tip. These are exactly the kinds of Sharpies that you need to write out your thoughts in a clear and concise way. We're opening the bidding right now at $100. I'm looking for a $100 bidder. Now, who has got this today for a $100? Looking for a $150. I've got $150. Looking for a $200 bidder now. Anyone in at $200? Looking at $200. He's got it right now at $200. Looking for a $250 bidder right now. He's got it at $250. Looking for a $300 bidder here. $300. Looking for $350. $350. Looking for $400. $400. Looking for $450. Who's in right now at $450? Anyone in right now at $450? He's got it right now at $400. Looking for a $450 bid right now. He's got it at $400. Anyone in right now at $425? Anyone in at a $425 bid? She's got it right now at $400. All in right now and sold. $400 to the woman in front of the beautiful blue painting.
There you go. Thank you. I tell you that $400, nobody else is ever touching this Sharpie but me.
So I'll tell you what. So what just happened? What did I ask for, Carla?
You asked for what you wanted.
No, what did I? Give me a number. What did I ask for?
You asked until you got a no. Every time you got a yes, you kept going, which I find fascinating.
You remember the number? I asked for $450. I got a no at $450.
Didn't get any $450, and then you went to $425, right?
I did. And what did I do? You still had it at $400. You were the winner right there at $400. I knew I had a yes at $400, but I couldn't stop until I knew that I had a no to everything above that 400. And I did.
No, I want you right there to connect the dots as to why that matters in the world of business, and especially when it comes to innovation and asking for support for your ideas.
Sure. So I have to say that that was terrible what I just demoed there. I've not been on stage doing a fundraising event since COVID hit. I did one digital event and that was it. So and it was really a direct pledge request. So that was I want to do that over. Let me just say that. Do over. Can I get a do over? But we did demonstrate this core idea. So the question is, why is it so important? So in business, so in the years and years I've been doing leadership communications work, every story I help a leader craft and deliver powerfully starts with, what is it? Well, we have lots of questions. Why does this matter in your career or in your leadership or in your organization right now? What happens if you get what you're asking for? Why is this important to your initiatives? And what specifically is it you're asking for? And once I get the answer to what is it that you're asking for, money, investment, head count, etc. And individually, it could be a promotion. I mean, I usually don't, in my leadership communications work, I don't usually coach on that kind of thing, but it doesn't matter. It's all, if you're going to sit in front of an audience that matters to a particular goal you have, and you're going to make an ask, what are you asking for? And then I'll always ask, how much of it? Because if you tell me head count, well, how much? You're asking for 100 heads? You're looking for 2. Are you looking for 100% raise? You're looking for 20% raise? Are you asking when you can quantify it, are you looking for a $50 million investment? Or are you looking for a $75 million investment? When I ask the question, how much, the answer I've gotten for years has been, well, Dia, what do you think I can get? I don't have an answer to that. So I'll say, oh, I don't know. What do you think you can get? And so the answer to the question, how much should I ask for, ends up being shaped around what we think we can get a yes to. Somebody says, oh, I really need to have 6 open recs to build this team in this way, but they'll never go for it. I don't think they'll go for it. So I'm going to ask for 4. Or I'm really looking to increase my income by 40%. They'll never go for that. So I'm going to ask for this. Whether you're stepping into a new job or et cetera. I'm really looking for X amount of investment. I'm looking for a mentor who's willing to commit this much time to helping nurture me in the face of my goals. We shape our asks to get a yes, inevitably leaving money and opportunity on the table. And this isn't something I saw until I started auctioneering, and I realized, oh no, when we actively build an ask to get a yes, well, that makes us feel good and we pat ourselves on the back for getting that yes, we have actively left money and opportunity on the table. When we ask in order to get a no, literally anticipating, what do I think is going to get me a no? And then ask for that, negotiate down for a click or 2 below it, whatever the increments are that matter to you, you will know that you have maximized the opportunity of that ask. That is what we draw on from the world of from the world of auctioneering to help you ask for more and get it. Go for a no, don't go for a yes. And you've got to read that no differently than you have before.
And that's interesting because I know when I've asked for something, or, let's use a classic, you put your house on the market, first people come through, buy it at asking price. You're like, oh, I didn't ask enough. I left money on the table.
It's true. And a house is less personal than a lot of the kinds of asks that I work with, I work with in my workshop, Your Most Powerful Ask Live, which is aimed at helping women ask for more and get it. The kinds of asks that women are making are about donations. I've had women coming through my workshops who are, running for office and asking their community and colleagues for donation for their campaign. They're asking, I have women asking for raises, asking for investment in their idea that they've been holding in their heart for 10 years and they're finally standing up and building a business around. They're making asks that are feel so personal to them. It is, and feels like the answer they get is a signal about whether they're worthy of the thing they're asking for or not, which makes us artificially sort of shop out of our own pockets and makes that no mean so much more than it should.
And so how do you counsel the people that you work with when, let's say they go in for that big, ginormous ask, they ask so much, and then the response is a no. how much do you start to back off? Do you look at that as you plan that strategy up front? Like,
Yes.
if this is a no, do you set that no 20%, 50% above, or?
I'm going to say, you mean above the no or above the yes?
Above the yes that they'd like to get.
Well, here's the thing. When we go in to make asks in our careers, we don't have an opportunity to say, I'm looking for $175,000 salary right now. Who's looking for an 80?
It'd be so much easier. It'd be so much easier.
But I mean, some folks are and will have moments where they're in a competitive bidding situation for their talent. Like, that's not unheard of, but it's not the most common scenario that I'm helping folks work through. So I guess the question is, how big do we need to go? The question is that I'll always ask when somebody says, I want to ask for X, I'll say, do you think that threatens a no? And if the answer is no, I'll say, what do you think threatens the no? I had a woman I was counseling the other day who was going into after building a business for the last 10 years is going in-house. And she got counsel from folks in her industry about what is sort of the appropriate salary ask for the role that she's stepping into. And, you could probably point to other things to back it up, right? You could say it's in the ballpark, but is it in your ballpark? So the question then becomes, okay, good number. Is that the number you actually want? And she said, no, actually I want about 40% more. And I'm like, okay, write that number down. And then the question is, what do you think will make them say no? What do you think, what number do you think threatens getting a no? And it was like another 40% on top of that. So we identified these numbers and I was like, okay, so now you know what your baseline is, or in our language, what the world, from the world of auctioneering, you know what your reserve is, which is the minimum she would do it for. What would threaten a no? And what is the thing in the middle between those that feels like honors what she's saying yes to when she accepts that role? So sometimes we have data, sometimes we just have a feeling, For those of you listening who are independent professionals, maybe you own a micro business, maybe you are, an independent consultant. The only person who's given us a raise is us. Only. So we've got to ask ourselves, what do we think threatens a no? And read the no we get, not as, oh no, I made a mistake, but as like, ooh, I just touched the ceiling right there. There it is. There's the maximum of the opportunity of this ask, and then let's negotiate down. I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did, and I would imagine, because I think even if you have the coaching and know the skills, I see a lot of people still being really hesitant to stick their neck out there, or raise their hand, and actually speak the words for the ask.
Yes, and that is because everything above what we know we can get a yes to is an existential threat and lives in a place that I like to call the zone of freaking out, or the ZOFO. So for the example I just shared with you, when I was speaking with her, I was like, what's the number that is, you think is industry accepted that you can, talk about and have a data rationale for? What's your ZOFO number? And then what number do you think they'd say no to? The number they said no to was even above her ZOFO number. Why don't we step into our ZOFO? We don't step into our ZOFO because we assume that getting a no means we're not worthy. And the trick, the thing that I've learned from the world of auctioneering. So in Project Ask Like an Auctioneer, we talk about go for no, not for yes. And that everything in the zone of no, or anything that is above a yes, between a yes and a no, lives in the ZOFO, right? Like, that's why we don't go there, because it freaks us out. It has a lot of meaning for us. And that there are 9 ideas from the world of auctioneering, ideas and insights and strategies. Some of them are kind of mindsets that help you step into the ZOFO and challenge what you think you can get. And one of them is that price is a measure of value, not your worth. Meaning, price is a measure of what the other party you're talking to values something at. It's not an indication of your worthiness. It is not an indication of your worthiness, because what you value in something may not align to what somebody else values in it. Stop putting your worth and worthiness on the answer that you get.
That's fabulous advice, because I think in a lot of other areas in our life, I mean, money is such a hot button for everybody, for most everybody.
Loaded.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at something else in my life that I value, like I value time outside. Maybe somebody else doesn't value that. And if I keep pushing for more outside time and they say no, I'm like, that's all right. That's just how they are. It's not, they don't value it the way I do.
Wrong thing to ask for.
Exactly. It doesn't have that emotional trigger.
Yes.
Like money does.
Now, I want to say that what I've learned since I've launched Ask Like an Auctioneer is that, and there's sort of two halves of it. One is that I want women to ask for more and get it, because I want to put more money and decision-making power in the hands of women so we can change everything for all of us, right? When women earn more, they push more of that into the initiatives that matter, into their own families and communities. When women have more decision-making power, maternity leave. So it does matter to me that we get more money and decision-making power in the hands of underrepresented folks so that we can create the changes that matter to us all. But the other piece of it is that we can use asking as a success strategy. Now, specifically, the world of Ask Like an Auctioneer is tied to my experience, the world of fundraising auctioneering, where there's all kinds of asks that lead up to the money ask. Will you come to the event? Will you buy tickets for your friends? Will you claim yourself as a community member for this organization? Will you take on our initiative as something that you own, you name and claim and own? Well, like so many different places where we engage our audiences. And what I've noticed since launching Project Ask Like an Auctioneer is that we have basically 4 categories of things that we can ask for that advance our goals. Yes, it's money, but it's also authority. And that can come in the form of owning a decision over a particular initiative at work, or it could mean actually in the form of a promotion where you have a title to go with the decisions that you own and are responsible for. Sometimes it means making the ask that let you go out on your own and develop something that is yours so you can own decisions about it, how you author your day. It also falls into the third category, which is around influence. The asks you need to grow your own influence, access to networks, asking to be on bigger stages, asking to be in front of different audiences that matter, asking for mentorship that you might need, whether that's asking somebody to come on, an influential voice to come on as a board member in your startup, or if it's about, having the opportunity for the very first time in your career to stand in front of your all hands meeting and speak on behalf of your team's project. Influence, when we make women's work more visible and grow influence, you can reach your goals faster. And then the fourth one is balance. And the asks that a lot of women make, I've noticed, are about bringing into balance, not work-life balance, but bringing into balance our inner self and our external context so that we're doing the work that is actually aligned to who we are.
That's true, because when the work that you do every single day aligns with that inner self, it's not as exhausting. It's not as stressful. We feel permission. We feel it's okay to show up and express ourselves as we naturally do. And we see that just supercharge innovation all over the place. And I think it's that ability that to learn how to ask for those things, to create the environment that lets you show up like that so that you do feel comfortable, because having these different dynamics and contributions are so important to creating this creative and innovative environment.
So in this world, for organizations, I know you started by saying I'm impacting organizations, and it's true with the Ask for More and Get It work. I'm coming into women's ERGs, initiatives tied to their D&I strategies. And I get a lot of, for folks that I send proposals to, they'll sometimes say our executives are maybe worried about teaching women how to ask for more and get it. And then what happens? And I'm like, don't be scared. Number one, you have salary bands and you have your own rationale for why you might say as a response to their asks, yes or no to something. So don't freak out. Let's also remember that when we as women or anyone make an ask, that might scare the pants off of us sometimes, but it also puts pressure on someone else to have to say no. You have more power than you think. Okay. That's number one. Number two, I often have to remind organizations I work with that no, when women have the courage to ask for what they actually want and grow their careers inside of your organization, they will inevitably align where they want to go in their lives and careers more with the initiatives inside the organization. I have anecdotal stories all over the place. One woman was like, I'm in a sales function. I want to move into design. I could never possibly do it here. They'll never go for it. So she was planning on leaving her job Instead, we were like, no, how about you step into your Zofo, make an ask that challenges what you think you can get using the ideas from Project Ask Like an Auctioneer. She did that. Her boss was like, thank goodness, let's find a pathway for you to move into the design function. How wonderful for that organization to retain all that institutional knowledge that came out of a customer-facing role into marketing and design. Hello.
Oh, I know. And I think we just assume that we're always going to get that no, that what we're asking for, even if it may have the same value to us, the people we're asking, we don't realize they want it too. One of the things I have heard, I think more in the last 18 months than I've heard my whole career, is supervisors, bosses, executives saying, I need people to come to me. I need them to ask for support for their ideas. I need them to ask for resources for an opportunity to see. I need them to come ask me for these things, because the people who do say yes can't be everywhere all the time. And asking for something is also a sign that you're thinking for yourself.
Yes.
You're thinking critically about your situation. And you do, again, back to your point, understand the value of what you're asking for. And I think it's somewhat of a natural tendency for us to think that the people we're asking things from, that their natural default is that they want to say no. And I think I would challenge people to realize people want to say yes to you way more than you realize.
I think
that's to ask.
That's really a beautiful framing. I think also in the context of Rethink Innovation and the work you do around helping people bring their ideas into the world, sharing an innovative idea is a risk. Like, it could be a Zofo moment for you. And so what stories are we telling ourselves about whether our ideas will be accepted or not, that stop us from bringing them into the room? So yeah, I know we haven't talked very much about how to connect the dots between innovation and the work here, but there we are.
There we are. And I know I could talk to you forever. We were going to break down your process, because I think you are like a lot of prolific innovators. You do it so naturally that you don't realize that you're doing it. And before you know it, like, that's why you have idea after idea. And I think you took my archetype assessment. And I think you're a provocateur.
I am actually, and Baby A, who you'll hear on our podcast for people that are listening now, ended up being the orchestrator, as he suspected. So that's cool. So, and for folks who are listening, today we are releasing our episode of the Bondi Show, a big podcast for women with goals, where Carla came onto the show and she actually walked me through, using her pitch framework, how to pitch and tell the story of Project Ask Like an Auctioneer, how it is an innovative idea that solves a very specific problem. And so you can hear that on the episode that goes live today. I think we'll drop that in the comments, or if not, you can find it.
Yeah, I think so. If we don't have it here, but it was fantastic, and it's so nice that we're on each other's show on the same day.
I love it.
That's a lot of fun. And one of the ways. I'm thinking back to how you and I got connected, and we were part of a group called Dreamers and Doers for Women. And it was through that you and I got connected, because you asked in one of their communities if anybody had ever heard of Harbor Space in Barcelona. Yes. And that's where I had taught at. That's what took me to Spain. How did you find Spain? Did you enjoy Barcelona?
I didn't go because COVID hit immediately. I was teaching in June, and so leading up to it, the flight was booked, but I ended up teaching it virtually from my office in Berkeley, which was a very interesting experience. And really, I had experience teaching virtually. I'd done a lot of work for global organizations, so that wasn't super unfamiliar to me. But I ended up doing it. at a virtual experience. Hopefully that won't be how it's all continuing indefinitely.
Yeah, I hope that you're able to go back, because it's a great educational environment. It's a completely different type of student.
Yes.
And they're eager to learn, and they're fun. So I know that they would have really enjoyed having you as a teacher. And
it was great. Barcelona is an amazing place. I'd been there before for Mobile World Congress a handful of years before. You want to talk about innovation?
There you go.
That's it.
Or as the auctioneer assistants say, hup, hup, hup. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Good.
There you go. Dia, I know people are going to want to learn more about you, more about your work. Where can they find you?
They can find me at diabondi.com, and you can listen to our podcast anywhere where you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, and beyond. It's called the Dia Bondi Show, a big podcast for women with goals. And for folks who are listening, who run, ERGs in their organizations,
And what's an ERG?
An employee resource group. So initiatives that are I think research shows that initiatives and employee resource groups, who are, sort of like clubs that we had in high school, maybe, are a hugely impactful on elevating women in organizations and helping, grow their success. And so if you are affiliated with or run an organization inside of a company dedicated to elevating women, you can reach out to us about Project Ask Like an Auctioneer and how it might be a good fit for your programming to help women ask for more and get it, and use asking as a success strategy so they can reach their goals faster.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me here today. Like I said, I could talk to you all morning. It's been fantastic. Thank you, Dia.
Thanks.
And for everyone else, I encourage you to check out Dia's work. It's phenomenal. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, an auctioneer or a corporate communicator or any other kind of professional. It's fantastic to learn to ask into your freak out zone so that you can have greater impact and you can start to rethink some of your beliefs about the value of the work that you do. I'm Carla Johnson. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Connect the Dots. To make sure that you don't miss future episodes, make sure to follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn, or subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little bell so that you are sure to get notification every time we go live or we publish a new video. I'm Carla Johnson, and thank you for joining me on today's episode